Hi guys, and welcome to the Stephen King Sematary Club. Hi guys, today we are discussing the first Richard Bachman book, which is Rage. It was originally published in 1977. So I am reading it from the Bachman books, which is the 4 early books collection that was published in the 80s, 1985. I do not have a standalone copy of any of those 4 books that are included in there, and nowadays you cannot get Rage because it's out of print. Even the Bachman books are now being sold with just the remaining 3 novels in them. You can't get Rage anymore. It was Stephen King who decided to take Rage out of print, and I completely support his decision to do that. It is probably his most controversial work, if not for the subject matter, but because of the fact that he put an end to the publication. So I do think that it has been built up to being more scandalous than it actually is. I think that a lot of the interest in it is because it's taboo now to, read it. I first read Rage probably 7 years ago, something like that, and I had no idea what it was going into it, but I knew that it was a controversial book. So there is that expectation that it's going to be really, really bad, when you read it. And then actually when I read it the first time, I was very surprised at the way the story progressed. It was not at all like I expected. Rage was almost published by Doubleday before Carrie. So 2 years before Carrie, it was almost picked up as Getting It On. That was the title at the time. And getting it on is a phrase that is used quite often in the novel. So this novel, like many Stephen King things, takes place in Maine. It's a town called Placerville. It's a Wednesday morning, and our narrator is a student named Charles Decker. He's in an algebra class. He is summoned to the principal's office. So he gets there. We find out that Charlie has assaulted a teacher, put him in the hospital. The teacher has survived, and they are discussing what to do with Charlie. He gets into this huge confrontation with the principal, and the principal throws him out. He expels him. So Charlie is told to get his stuff and leave, and the principal calls parents up, talk to them about it. So Charlie goes to his locker, and he starts ripping up his books. He burns them in his locker, closes the locker door, and he removes his padlock to the locker. He throws it out, then he changes his mind. He picks it up and he puts it in his shirt pocket. So this fire is starting. He also grabs a pistol that he has been taking to school with him, and he goes into his algebra class. The algebra teacher, Mrs. Underwood, she asks him for his hall pass, and he immediately shoots her, and she's dead. He shoots her once, that's it. And then he takes over the class. Then there's a whole hubbub because of the fire. The fire alarms have gone off. The school building is evacuated, and everyone is outside except for this classroom of students. A teacher, Mr. Vance, tries to get the students out, telling them about the fire and wondering about Mrs. Underwood, and Charlie shoots him and kills him. Now, these are the only deaths in this entire novel, so that was surprising to me. Charlie holds this class of students and basically says you can't leave, change seats if you want to sit by people that you want to sit by, if you want to smoke, go ahead and smoke, we're just going to relax. And the students are alarmed, but not as alarmed as you would think. There's a whole faction of police that come, and they're waiting outside. There's a psychiatrist who has been talking to Charlie about, the fact that he assaulted a teacher. He's been, in therapy for this, and they have summoned this guy to come talk to Charlie, and the guy is very arrogant, and Charlie plays this really fast-paced, questioning game with the psychiatrist to, I guess, knock him down a peg or two. And he says to the psychiatrist, you are not allowed to ask any questions. The first question you ask, I am going to shoot someone. And they go through this huge rapid fire thing where the guy is not allowed to ask questions. Only Charlie is allowed to ask questions. And, you know, he's not allowed to get off the intercom with Charlie. He has to answer, otherwise Charlie is going to shoot someone. Well, it goes through this entire several pages worth of questions, probing, embarrassing questions, and questions intended to trip the guy up. And I do have a disdain for the psychiatrist. He's just very unlikable. And at the end, Charlie tricks him and asks him something that the guy is going to have to answer as a question. And so as soon as the guy does that, Charlie's like, oh, you got someone killed, and he shoots his gun into the floor. And the psychiatrist thinks that he really shot someone, which is not true, but he had that whole feeling that, you know, he caused Charlie to kill someone. The students in the class ask him if he's nuts, and he says, yes, I must be nuts because I have shot people, and anyone who shoots someone must be nuts, in my opinion, basically is what he says. We find out that Charlie has a very unhealthy relationship with his father. His dad is cruel to him. Charlie, who has been just hating his father for years and years and years, he gets into it with his dad in the garage, and they come to blows. His father reaches for a rake, one of the hard rakes made out of metal, and Charlie reaches for a hatchet, and they face off, and then nothing really comes of that. It says, quote, "It occurred to me that the man I really wanted to hurt was safely out of my reach, standing behind a shield of years." That's on page 118. So Charlie really wanted to kill his dad of yesteryear, and his dad is not that anymore. His dad is older and softer, and it wouldn't be the same to Charlie. So they just kind of go on about their business. There are two girls in the class who get into it. They're fighting over, one girl calls the other girl's mom a slut or a whore. I don't remember what she calls her. And so they have this like fight where they insult each other and then slap each other inside the circle, and they can't leave the circle. So there's just all this stuff going on inside the classroom where the kids are breaking down into animalistic, rage-driven creatures. It's very Lord of the Flies to me. There is a student named Ted who, from the get-go, is trying to figure out a way to overpower Charlie or to trip him up or to do something and save himself and then the other people by extension. And it starts out where he is just a normal kid, and then we kind of learn a whole bunch of stuff about him that slowly gets us not liking him very much. And then we find out that he was unhinged and he beat someone up, and he had sex with one of the classmates, and it kind of left her emotionally upset and empty feeling, and he just slowly becomes this very unlikable character. It is interesting that the classmates are fine with Charlie and everything that he does. He has killed people in front of them, and he is very likable to them even then, and they feel sorry for him and they don't feel threatened by him. He allows one girl to go to the bathroom, and she comes back to the room. Like, she doesn't try to escape, she just comes back and hangs out. And it progresses, and you can see the hatred that they feel for this other kid, Ted. So a whole bunch of things occur. There was a sniper who tried to shoot Charlie, and he had a clear shot. He got Charlie right in the chest, but that was where the padlock was. So Charlie did not die. His life was saved by that padlock. And finally, Charlie tells the authorities, "I'm going to release everyone here at 1 o'clock. I'm going to release everyone here. That's 57 minutes away. We just have an extra matter of business to attend to. No one will be hurt." So the final order of business is basically all of the students turn on this Ted and they start advancing on him. They kick him, they bite him, they are stuffing paper into his mouth and putting ink in his hair. They're just torturing him and abusing him. And then they all just leave the classroom once that business has been attended to. So it is very Lord of the Flies. Charlie is deemed insane and he is in a mental institution, and Ted is catatonic. So that's basically the gist of it. No one is afraid of Charlie. No one, except for Ted. Ted seems to be afraid. No one is angry with him, again, with the exception of Ted. And like even later, one of Charlie's friends writes to him in the mental institution and is talking to him as though nothing bad happened. It's very, very bizarre. So my assessment of this book is that I feel like it could be shorter. I think this would work better as a short story. I just don't find myself caring about any of the characters in this book. And even Charlie, I am kind of indifferent toward. He doesn't elicit any kind of sympathy from me, and I don't care about Charlie. I don't care about his story very much. His dad is horrible. His mom is kind of a doormat. Even the writing style in this feels very different from Stephen King books. So I'm glad, given that this is his book before Carrie even, I am glad that he didn't stick with this style. On my second read of this book, I still don't really like it. I don't think it should be as controversial as it has been made out to be. I recommend the book if you want to be a completist, if you want to read everything that Stephen King has written, which, you know, I do. I will read anything. So even if it's a bad Stephen King book, I at least want to read it once. So I don't really recommend it as a gripping story. Like I said, I actually do think this could have worked if it was a short story. Let me know what you think down below. Have you read it? Have you not read it? Are you intrigued because it was taken out of print, or do you not care about that kind of thing? Have a spooky day. The psychiatrist's name is Dr. Grace, and then it goes on immediately to talk about a student named Grace. It's Grace Stanner. And I just feel like that's really sloppy. I mean, I know that I always think about this in my head, that, you know, there are multiple people who have the same name, and, you know, you should, as to reflect reality, one should incorporate that. But then the other part says, for clarity's sake, it's just easier if you don't have characters with the same names. But that seems extra sloppy, to have a Dr. Grace and then a girl named Grace. With so few characters, it seems kind of silly to repeat a name, even if it is a last name and a first name.